Hey, welcome back. I don't have any donation announcements to make. I'm very sad about that. If anybody wants to make up a donation and send it out, please do. I'm being silly. But we're back with Kevin. Kevin's in my studio and has been for a couple of years plus. And he's come up with a really interesting, I guess the word is metaphor, analogy, something. And he just brought it to my attention. And I said, let's do that online. So let's see what we can do with it. It feeds off of the end of the last conversation. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you don't have to go see it. But anyway, we'll start with that. Kevin, give us an idea.
Yeah, I guess.
Give people your idea, your background, why you would even have this information.
Sure. I studied mechanical engineering in college, and I worked in the machine shop at my school while I was studying, and I found the sort of the hands-on application of engineering more interesting than the sort of more mathematical side of it, I guess. So after graduating, I was a machinist for a while. And so that feeds into this analogy, I guess, which is that
I'm thinking, what are my welders going to have?
Yeah.
That's one guy's going to work with us. I wish you'd join us, but West Virginia. But go for it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about, first of all, I was thinking about values, because it seems to me in nature there's this value range. And it's like a gradient, kind of. Go from very dark to very light on a scale. But when we're painting, we...
Right here. The black, the white.
Right.
And all the grays in between if you're looking at the image.
When we're painting, we discretize the scale into about 5 levels or so. And the reason we might do that, as far as I can guess, is first of all that our eyes can only perceive so much difference between values, which means there may be very, very subtle differences in values along the value range, but we don't detect it so much with our eyes. Right. And the other reason we might limit the amount of values along the amount of levels along the value range is to unify things without or rather to assist the truthfulness of the general impression.
Okay. Those are all good and true.
Yeah.
There's more to them, of course, as you can guess, but yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, if you have a still life setup, and you look really hard at the still life, and you might notice 2 values side by side, and let's say there's only 2% difference between those values. You might say, well, that difference is negligible, because if I'm looking at the general impression, they actually look unified.
So that's the darkening your eyes model.
Yes.
When you darken your eyes, yeah.
Blurring your eyes.
Those values.
Yeah.
I stopped saying blurring because it implies it did happen. Different things happen to different people's eyes. But if you just darken your eyes, let them get darker and darker, the way you do it is actually more like what I'm doing than squinting. People start squinting, and I don't squint to get my eyes darker. Not really. I just close them so much. Anyway, that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, then that feeds me into the machining analogy, which is that in the manufacturing world, there's this idea of tolerance, which is that it's very, very difficult to hit a specific dimension on a part with a high degree of repeatability. And so the customer ordering the part has to factor in a certain allowance for error that fits the function of the part.
Right.
So an example might be is the customer orders a dowel pin from me and says the diameter is 1 inches. The standard for tolerance might be plus or minus 5 thousandths of an inch, so 0.005 inches. However, let's say that customer needs that pin to press fit into a hole. Then the tolerance might be 0.001 inches. So if I machine the part to...
It's sort of hard to get in, but that's what he wants.
Yeah, you want it to be hard, but if you really compress it, it gets stuck in there. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be a very, very small amount of wiggle room, so to speak,
right,
that you have to work with as a machinist.
Okay.
So if I were to machine the part at 1.003 inches in diameter, for example, that would fail because it won't fit into the hole. It won't fit the requirements of the customer. So essentially, tolerances are designed around the function of the part and also saving cost, because it's hard to hit smaller tolerances. So the cost typically increases when you go smaller with tolerances. Sure. Anyways, to bring all that to sort of the painting process, and with the values too, it seems to me that there are certain tolerances within the painting process, and you have to reconcile that with the overall truth of the general impression, and also not getting stuck in a area noodling the whole time to get like the exact right truth at that area.
In the wrong moment, which is so it's a timing thing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, maybe you can just talk about the different sort of wiggle rooms or tolerances we have in painting as we're bringing it up to ultimately the truth.
Yeah. The one of the things that's so curious about painting is, I was talking in the interview with Tom, and he said, and you have to get that part that's most wrong. And I remember I said something like that to Gamble, and he said, no, least like. and there's a thing about what we're doing, that has a different motive than, even as a student, your job is to make it as you can, and to learn to make it more and more like. But you're already in the range of tolerance, because at some point you run out of time, because the teacher will typically give you a limited time or something. And so, and yet you'll be, as it were, passed. You'll go to the next grade or get the next assignment or whatever, if it comes into that tolerance. There's so many ways to use this word.
Yeah.
So there's a range already, just as a student, that you've got to come into if you expect to go to the next level. And Gamble would sometimes just say you don't have it. And he would tell you to go study with somebody else or something. Don't waste his time. Funny, but real. I've never assumed that kind of wisdom. I assume that there's the deficiency might be in me, the teacher, but he didn't. And I could be wrong too. But the second part of it, I'm sorry, what I was trying to say though is, so what's your motive when you're doing a picture? Is it accuracy, not being wrong about something? Or is it the underlying beauty of something, which allows for some tolerance? Mm-hmm. So, and it also allows for a broader brush and a lot of other things because of it, right? So, but if the model was truth and accuracy instead of truth and beauty, what I found is you can't actually express the beauty without being pretty proximate to the truth. But if your motive is the truth, you can often miss the beauty. So it's a weird, what's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful analogy though, because when we lay in a picture, what I was saying to Kevin off camera for a minute, we had this up last week, and I was saying to him that the first time you put down this and you do something up here to establish something like a top, so that'd be a top and a bottom, to get placement on the page, you articulate these things efficiently and right off the bat. You get these two values to produce that light effect, pop the edge, make the shape, and if you have to move it, do that. But we do it in a cursory way that's got some adequacy levels to it. And again, there's a tolerance there. Now the question is the tolerance, so if you're studying with me, I'm expecting you to take a picture and make it more and more and more like. And I expect you to make the next one even more like. And all this for a while, because you got to train your eye. You got to sharpen your eye. So I suppose it might be like a machinist learning to be finer. Maybe the best machinist could more repeatedly do the same size, or could get within that little fraction better than you could, or whatever. Mm. But you need to be able to do that over time, to have that. But what I'm going to tell you, though, is the most important thing about tolerance is that beauty is enormously tolerant. Mm. But it's not unforgiving. In other words, you got to be within some range. So I don't know what to say about what it is. But if you're painting this picture and you're not getting the life in the colors, even though you're getting the drawing right, that's intolerable. And I don't know why people are satisfied with that. I mean, this picture I wouldn't have painted on. This is mine, a little study. I don't remember why I did it. I think I was just amused by it. It was sitting on the shelf. But I wouldn't even start painting if the color weren't that. But look at the interesting little abstraction, the story with it. That was actually a box the shape of a fan back in the background, and so it was reminiscent, of course, of the geisha type dollies. But that's the thing that's why I paint this way, though, because I'm intolerant of I just love color too much, and the beauty that vibrates in front of me coloristically. I find not getting that is intolerable. So I know that's not how you mean that word, but you know what I mean? But there's an extreme end of intolerable. Some people will tolerate bad drawing in their own stuff and never have any standards. And other people will sit there and torture themselves to death because they have no forgiveness. You know what I mean? They have no ability to know the difference. So, yeah.
Would you say
execution of detail might be one of those things too, but you bring it, yeah.
Would you say in this case that the colors had a very low tolerance, whereas the drawing had a higher tolerance?
Because of the lost and foundness of it, you mean, or?
It's maybe
it's me what I will tolerate too, you know.
Right.
So, but yeah,
right, yeah.
I still relate that. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Maybe all of this depends on the person perceiving the thing and what they want to communicate about the beauty of the thing. But
this one's clearly keep letting that come. This one's clearly dependent on power lights in three places. I mean, it's dependent on the magic of this impression depends on having those produce.
Right.
To be right to each other and to pop. That was the pleasure of that day in that moment. The other drawing that we talked about at the very end last time that isn't very important, I have a lot of tolerance for generalizing about that.
Right.
So but I know it's not exactly what you mean, but the analogy is useful for that, even if we're not getting quite at your point yet.
Well, no, I think it's there because I think where I'm getting at is you saw this and you were impacted by the beauty of it, and the beauty probably mostly depends on the symphony of colors and the powerful light effects, something like that.
Well, I'm not that guy. I want the distribution to be fun, spotting. Yeah. So, in other words, if you once you've educated yourself about composition and you know, part of your choices, so there's an inclusiveness. But what I would say, instead of doing that, which I mean, what you're saying is right, that either a certain time in your life or just by, if you're, so we say if you're colorblind, it'd be something else. It might be light effects, but it'd be the values game. And therefore the edges become more important to getting your effects and stuff like that, you know, for another guy. I've lost my main point. Sorry about that. Pick up wherever you are.
Yeah, I guess maybe where I'm trying to go with this is that depending on what strikes you, depending on how the beauty of the thing that you're looking at strikes you and sort of what makes up that beauty, you might have higher or lower tolerances for different components of the painting.
That would be reasonable.
And so at
least in terms of not now. What are you going to focus on? Because my starts are always about getting that essential magic out there where I can see it and say, yes, now let's bring it the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be, yeah. So definitely there would be some secondary considerations.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe one example is as we've spotted colors and we're first going around hitting the major light effects and setting up the shapes.
The major blobs, major masses, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I might say that we have a high tolerance for the exact shape at those, the shape of the points and angles at the light effect that we're painting.
Yeah, so that's set up, as we said before, with the top, something on the bottom, something to make a top somewhere, and a left and a right, as we're starting to situate it and get its size right. So, but yeah, so those things, yeah, so that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. What you just said it was, repeat it for everybody now that they know what we're talking about.
So yeah, as we're first laying in the painting and we're going around getting the major effects to start with,
right?
We might have a high tolerance for how this shape down here is exactly. We're more concerned, I would think, with are the light the light effects right relative to one another.
Yeah. Well, that's where again where the way the Boston School thinks is more inclusive, inevitably.
Hmm.
So I want to get the light effects, but I separate it. Like this is where you get the benefit of thinking simple and not thinking you have to be a genius or something.
Hmm.
But we know that we have to get the colors out there because we're going to draw wet into wet with these colors. So we need to put them out there as colors and see if we can got the color scheme even before we make them do anything. I can float that in a white, and you can too in half. Put them in a white puddle, and you can see that they're going to be about right. And then you bring them for the second test, and you're testing them to see if the values are right. And to determine that they're actually right, you have to cut the sharpness at the edge.
Hmm.
But as soon as you're in this neighborhood to do that major test there, you have what we introduce then as a point. So we can do geometry, so to speak. We can do point shapes, constellations.
Yeah.
So that I articulate first with the edge to get the effect right. And when that's good, that's my primary consideration. I'm always trying to put it in the right place. But then I can say, now, where exactly do I want that? So a minute before that, I was tolerant.
Yes. Yes.
Of just get the shape. Let's get it in the approximate place, and then we'll really bring it when we can see that we've got the effect, and we'll do it as it were for a last time. And I say for a last time because in a sense it's never the last time. But you can see how you might have to paint it 3 times in the lay-in just to get it to be number one skin.
Hmm.
But yeah, so with this thing here, it might have been the top that would be useful, but the side over here would be useful for getting widths. So I would have to paint right around the top. At the point that ball is too big, though, it'll screw up sense of distances and things. So that'll cause you to have to make the size of that about right, oddly enough, even though you're only making a crescent moon out of it. But yeah, so the answer is yeah, I do try to articulate that. This one, see what I do is I go around a corner. So I have a location this way and a location this way. And the same thing over here, a location this way, a location this way. But the real shape, so nobody I'm doing this would see that I'm finding locations. They would just, oh, you made a ball. I'm not a genius. I know that all I'm doing is making a light effect. And I'm making sure I get the left place in the right and the top of it in the right place, right? But I can do it with a ball or 10 other complicated things, an organic leaf or just a part of a dress. I don't know if that gets you somewhere, but that's sort of where you were headed, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I abusing your term tolerance? But I really like the tolerance in the same sense as that we mean it on Earth, like forgiveness. And I know they mean that too in the machining world. They mean they can overlook it. They asked for this. You got within the ballpark.
Yeah.
And you could be forgiven. You tried hard. No, if it didn't go in, you wouldn't have been. You had to be within that range. And I'm saying that so when we lay this in, I'm trying to get people the first time they go around here to attempt that effect.
Mm-hmm.
But if you spend a week doing that effect, this is not going to end well. It's going to be a year later that you might be finally getting around this,
right?
Getting the canvas covered or whatever. But
right.
So that learning to do that and be very forgiving of yourself in the sense of trying to do it with a brush stroke instead of trying to, that's why I've tried to get students to draw around corners, to learn to draw right through a corner with a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the most important thing on earth, although in drawing I think it is very important. But because, but the idea though is to simply establish a place in space. You have to have a movement this way and a place this way and a place this way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it has to be articulate enough so it produces your light effect. If you make this with a soggy edge, you're not going to actually know for sure. So the test of your light effect is actually the sharpness of your edge. So I don't know of another way to do it, but if you prioritize shape, that's where everything goes funny because you're not bringing the whole world up at once. And that model, the Baron Grow model, tells you to do that. Baron Grow says if you drop dead, somebody should be able to sell the picture, which means that all the way along, all the parts should be coming up at once. Mm-hmm. And the way he says it means that. I don't know what he did in his studio or what other people might have to say about that, or students or something, but it's clearly a thing that when you have the essential color scheme and you have the top players distributed well, and sort of like over in this stuff here, this is just busyness. It's not drawing in one sense. Of course, in a sense it is. But, I was suggesting people should look at that painting by, in Boston, of that canal with a distance looks like a suburb. and noticed that in the river, he put on the paint to be loosey goosey, and it still is there. I never noticed it 30 years later till last year or something. I said, oh, that's what I've been preaching. There it is, because there was a need to be there and be noisy, make it not smooth, and beyond that, how much more do you? So, what's his level of tolerance? But the fact is, so one of the things we can talk about is the way when Michelangelo, somebody said, doesn't look like Lorenzo de Medici. He says, who'll know in 30 years? Public tolerance is a whole other story. You know what I mean? But he was not saying that. He was saying, this is a monument, and I'm making a statement about this guy. Let that be Lorenzo. And they made a noble figure. The guy might have been totally ignoble, full of warts, for all we know. Mm-hmm. So that's a different class of animal. But a lot of people, students, are tending to do that. Who'll know? It's not a happy model. Who'll know? But you only ask the question if the model is accuracy and truth and literalness.
Right.
But who'll know? In a sense, there's another thing that happens. Everybody knows this, and I was reading Ortega recently. I've mentioned it to you, but he's talking about the quality of a work. Say something like this. There's a whole bunch. You're aiming at something, right? And you're making sure you get as close to that. You really bring it, right? And then there's something else there that you didn't mean to bring because you don't even understand it, that is there. Do you know what I mean? It's a very strange world we live in, though. So when a person comes to view this, they don't even really exactly know whether you lived up to anything. Mm-hmm. They can't. And you're not going to live up to anything. But you have, by the way, in the relation to paintings being good, you have to know how to be adequate. And that's one of the things about being human, Forgiving other people is understanding how to be adequate yourself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you have some perfection thing in your brain, how, you haven't helped your wife or your neighbor or whatever. Mm. By the way, congratulations. I won't say what that's about. Yeah, but you can see what I'm saying. So you don't want to be in that place where you're not being responsible. You have to be responsible to yourself, to the art form, to history, to Michelangelo. I think, and then to the guy following you. But the guys that we tend to forgive the most, it's because they have so much going on already that's good. Mm-hmm. It's not, we don't forgive them because they tried hard and stuff like that. You don't get grades for trying hard. Mm-hmm. It's got to do this thing. And I try to get you guys to make pictures that when somebody sees it, some kid will say, I think I want to be a painter. Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. How are we doing for time? We're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just bring another edge of it. Is there any way else you think of that? What were you thinking about when it came to you? That when you suddenly found this analogy, was there something that you're working on in particular? In a minute, while you're doing that, cogitating on that, one of the things is the breadth thing. You have this whole world of what we're doing now, what we're doing later. The Boston School had they would tolerate a whole lot less detail, and that model is out there for you. It's the word, but the model is breadth. In other words, make the broadest statements you can. Don't sit there and noodle little details and eyelashes and all that sort of stuff. They had a lot of tolerance for no details. Mm-hmm. We can't use that word, but in the class of noodling. but the Boston School guys get to the point. You be succinct, and they seem to have the model of the Italians that was wow. Your model should be wow. Mm. And I think that as much as we all fail to reach our goals, there are days when that's what you say about numbers of those pictures. The blue cup or whatever. There's an inevitable wow. You just stand there and think. You don't know what to think, actually. It's just maybe even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a thing. That's why I ask what brought you to the dance, because you got to live up to that. Mm-hmm. And you should not tolerate anything else in yourself as you're trying to develop. You should always aim small, miss small is a thing. Aim at. Try to understand all the things you need to be good at to achieve the things you love. I'm not talking about in the world of the spirit, paintings about the Bible, Bible paintings or something like that, or church. I'm talking about the painting field, Mm-hmm. So everybody creates a model. They have a visual. Somebody said, was it Tintoretto? I keep getting it wrong, but anyway, the color of Titian in the drawing of Michelangelo. So, but that's a standard setter. You know what I mean? You're doing that, but it's usually based on the ones that just turn you on like crazy. And some of that can change too. I mean, in other words, you can have low standards because you've never tasted multiple wines, and by the time you've tasted a few different ones, you start thinking, "I will never drink that stuff again." We used to drink Ripple when I was in high school. You ever heard of Ripple? I don't think it exists anymore. No. Did you think of another way or what was on your mind when that thing first came across? Did it come that way when you were painting? It came across as the word tolerance?
It's hard to say. I think it was just in the back of my head for a while until it had the form of that analogy, maybe.
Yeah.
But I would to add to it, I think there are, just noticing in myself in my own painting, I notice when I can have too high of a tolerance, which is maybe another way of just expressing laziness.
Yeah. We all have different of those things, different versions of laziness.
Yeah.
That have to be somehow you have to figure your way through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's kind of like going back to the previous video. Maybe it's as I'm going around trying to work on the painting, and I might make a couple of edges to try to see the shape relationships and everything, and I didn't quite make those edges right. But I might say to myself, in the name of tolerance, well, let me move on to something else right now and work on that, see how that looks relative to that. But whereas at that time, I really should have gotten the right edge quality and everything about that area, just because that's where I needed to be at the moment or something. Yeah.
So when you're there, do it and get it done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had a aphorism about that. What was it? Anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Yeah.
I say that from time to time. But in our case, it's really serious, because especially when it becomes a placement thing. Now, again, you got to know what adequate is, because there is a thing that we do that is speculative. So when you put the top and bottom down, that's where you think you want it, but then you're going to come back and look, and you might change your mind when you start seeing it in person. So do you see what that's different too, though? Mm-hmm. So you got to allow this variability in there. So you'd say, the guy will say to you, "I want it to be within 0.0 whatever of 0.5. But after he sees what you're doing, he'll say, "I think that should be 10. It should be looser. It should fit looser." What's wrong with that? So his tolerance of your or whatever. Do you see where I'm going? But
well, you got a bug.
Oh, did I do it? Oh, do I really?
Yeah.
Was it one of those big ones?
Stink bug.
Did it? You live in New Hampshire. I think those are beautiful bugs, but my wife hates them. Is it gone? Did I get rid of it?
Yes, it looks gone to me. There's a treat.
Well, do we tolerate that? This house actually is very funny. It's a log home, and I swear they hatch in here. They've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Where were we on that one?
I'm sorry, I got distracted.
No.
I forget.
It could have been something worse.
Oh, you were talking about a guy coming back and saying he wants a bigger tolerance and adequacy.
Yeah, and so you have a built-in flexibility, but you got to know whether you do or not. And a lot of students come in and they want to know what the right place is, but they aren't looking. They don't go back and look, so they can. Their art will tell them, so to speak. The pleasure of their eyes, and the thing they love, and what it does when they see it on the canvas. So that's why you want to set up the color scheme, because you want to see. This was me. The first time I ever did this, I wanted to see if the color scheme was going to work. And I didn't want to wait 20 days into it to find out it didn't. So I learned to put a color scheme down really early because I had to know, which means it had to be accurate. It had to be pretty dang good. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't believe that I knew, and looking at nature wasn't anything. I've always noticed that when you look at nature, you think something. But when you look at it on a canvas, it is something. Now it's something that you actually have to make a decision about, whether it's worthy or not of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Its own class, its own animal, its own character. So, but that, yeah. So, and then you can say about these other two sides, when you're trying to locate this, you're going to put something out there. You put this out there and you're thinking it probably goes here, but as soon as you put this in, you say, or something else in there, you suddenly say, I think it's going to be too far. Or you get enough pieces of data and you think, but you're flexible enough to know that you're going to move it in the start if you must. So there's a tolerance that is there for the purpose of experimentation, so you can do some exploring. And a huge part of this is that's what it is. You put down notes, a color note and you look at it, put another one, look at them together. You keep doing that, and there's adjusting until you finally have the concert. Have them in concert. But the first one you put out is a pig in a poke, as I've said many times, maybe more than once to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's true of your edges and everything else too. It's a system of things, So the fun, as much fun as anything. I don't know if people can appreciate looking at a picture like this, though. How much fun it is to explore this world, to discover beauty. It's every time, to uncover it, to have found it and put it down. It's like you can say there's gold in that mine, and I own it, but to have it on the table in front of you, a chunk this big. Anyway, silly stuff. Yeah. What else should we do with that? Does anything else come to mind in terms of your own work?
I think we're
we're
running out of time there.
Yeah.
I think that's a very
Saved
good...
by the Bell. A good place to stop.
Yeah, I think that's a very good discussion.
Yeah. So good. Let's see what others think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again. Thank you, Kevin. We do appreciate it.
Of course.
Hey guys, we'll see you next time. Do please keep sharing and all that. I am probably going to be starting a fundraiser pretty soon for this building I'm trying to put up, that we've been putting up here, this log studio thing. And I'm also going to be going to possibly we're trying to arrange a trip to London, where I'll do some workshops, some intensives, even some longer and shorter ones. We're thinking. So have in mind, they'll probably be just run at sort of costs that are typical, but I always scholarship and do stuff like that. So when people need it. So, but have in mind that late fall, maybe middle of fall, something like that. Okay, and I had nobody to thank yet. Please do donate. Mr. Producer depends on it. Anyway, not for his living, just to keep working for me. Just sort of, I'd like pay it by the, like by the milk comes to the door and I have to pay the bill. He's pretty good about it. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for being here, and also for these kinds of questions. A lot of people think that there's nothing in them, or I don't see any, but they get a conversation going, which all that happens is, days or months or even years later, they all of a sudden come to your assistance, so, and that's the whole thing about conversing, getting thoughts out there in the broader picture.
Sure.
Yeah.
Floating thoughts, as it were.
Yeah, just floating them around. Yeah, and they don't have to be right. They have to be, they're all, there's always something to them of value, but then they get into in the amorphous world, they start taking shape. It starts making, the whole thing starts forming up. So, yeah. So great. All right, folks. Thank you, and see you next week. I always say I'll see you next week, but only they'll see me. I won't see anybody next week.